The fantasy football playoffs are right around the corner, and we got a lot of wide receivers that are affected by low-ceiling quarterbacks. Guys like Bailey Zappi, Mitch Trubisky, Desmond Ridder, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson, Aiden O'Connell, Will Levis, Tommy DeVito, maybe even CJ Beathard this week. But it's this time in the fantasy season where you don't want to get too cute. You start your studs, you make a playoff run, and you try to walk away with a championship. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome to the quick and dirty top 30 wide receivers here for week 14 fantasy football. Now, before we get into the rankings, I need to announce a winner. In last week's show, we were giving away a signed Jordan Addison football. Well, the winner who was randomly selected from the comment section was Steel4253. Says that Jordan Addison football is a beauty, would be a great gift for my friend. Gonna pay it forward, love that. He's been balling out and stepped up when he needed to. So awesome. Steel4253, send me an email to info@thefantasyheadliners.com and I will go ahead and get you hooked up. But remember, we're giving away 2 items this week too. Did you miss out on it? It was in Kyle's running back video and in my wide receiver video. We have a couple mini helmets we're giving away this week. We got Saquon Barkley and Brandon Ayuk signed mini helmets right here. So if you're interested in those, be sure to head over to those videos after this video and get in on that giveaway as well. But now let's dive into the rankings. Kicking it off, number 1 once again has to be Tyreek Hill. And how can it not be Tyreek Hill? The guy goes out almost every single week, regardless of matchups, and puts up crazy numbers in a matchup. This week, going up against Tennessee, love it, got him at number 1. Number 2, it's CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Cowboys in a great matchup going up against Philadelphia. Philly way easier to throw on than run on, and that secondary gives up a ton of points to opposing wide receivers, so CeeDee's at number 2. Number 3, it's the Sun God. Hashtag Doomtar down below in the comment section. Amon-Ra, St. Brown in a matchup going up against Chicago. Amon-Ra continues to be one of the most consistent and safest wide receivers in fantasy football, who continually delivers ceiling games week in and week out due to that safety alone. I got Amon-Ra at number 3. Number 4, it's Mike Evans on an absolute tear. About to have a better season with Baker Mayfield than he had at any time with Tom Brady. In a matchup here this week going up against Atlanta with their top defensive back questionable to play in AJ Terrell, I got Mike Evans at number 4. Number 5, it's Jamar Chase. And this has everything to do with Jake Browning and his ability to run this offense. And not just that, he really likes himself some Jamar Chase and locks onto him each and every week. Now a matchup going up against Indianapolis due to the volume and big play ability. Jamar Chase is at number 5. Number 6, it is the return of Justin Jefferson. Now a lot of people are going to throw him right back up into that number 1 spot. And if everything was the same in Minnesota now as it was when Jefferson got hurt, maybe I do the same. But Kirk Cousins isn't the quarterback, and we really don't know what Josh Dobbs can do with multiple big play weapons in the same offense. Does Jordan Addison completely get forgotten about? Does everything go to Justin Jefferson? That's something we need to find out. So for right now, we're just tempering expectations slightly. Got him at number 6. Number 7, it's Stephon Diggs off the bye week in a matchup going up against Kansas City. 2 tough defenses, but whenever these 2 teams get together, it's nothing but offense. So I got Stephon Diggs at 7. Number 8, it's AJ Brown, Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Not some cream puff matchup for AJ Brown. Plus in this Philadelphia offense, we still have Devontae Smith, plus now Dallas Goedert back practicing fully. It could limit some of the targets going the way of A.J. Brown. I got him at number 8. Number 9, it's Keenan Allen, the Los Angeles Chargers in the matchup going up against Denver. Denver's defense have been playing better here second half of the season, but with no one else to throw it to in L.A., we know each and every week Keenan's going out and getting 10 plus targets, so he's at number 9. Number 10, another guy getting 10 plus targets and putting in work. It's Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts in a matchup this week going up against Cincinnati. We saw this Cincinnati defense absolutely shredded by Trevor Lawrence last week prior to the injury, and Michael Pittman is a top 12 wide receiver on the season now. I got him at number 10 this week. Number 11, it's DJ Moore. He's done nothing but produce since the return of Justin Fields. He's got a matchup this week going up against Detroit. If Detroit can get an early lead, we're going to see a whole lot of DJ Moore. Plus, did you see last week's game? They're really making a conscious effort to get the ball to DJ Moore quickly. Short routes, wide receiver screens, and that's just racking up PPR points right there. I got him at 11. Number 12, it's Brandon Ayuk of the San Francisco 49ers in a great matchup going up against Seattle. Once again, I always say it with San Francisco, the same thing I say in Miami. If they're fully healthy on offense, we're starting all these pieces because the ceilings are too high to ignore. Brandon Ayuk at number 12. 13, Courtland Sutton. I believe I may have him higher than most people here this week. And there's a few reasons for that. One of them, the matchup is great. The Chargers allow some of the most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, and Courtland Sutton just goes out and scores touchdowns weekly, it feels like. 75% of his games this season have had a touchdown in them. Given the fact that no other wide receiver on this team really takes away huge volume, Courtland Sutton is at 13. 14, Jalen Waddle. Great matchup going up against Tennessee, but we haven't seen that ceiling from Jalen Waddle this year like we have in years past. Now, because of that, I've dropped him down here to number 14 because we do not want to forget the type of ceiling that he still has. His floor hasn't been overly bad as a wide receiver 2. I'll take him at wide receiver 14. Number 15, it's Chris Olave. And really, there's two issues with Chris Olave for me here this week. One is the matchup against Carolina. Carolina may suck as a team, but they're not bad against opposing wide receivers. So it's that and the fact that we still have no idea really who's going to start for sure in New Orleans. Derek Carr is banged up. Do we go Jameis Winston, or do they roll out an injury-riddled Derek Carr right now? I do feel, though, if they name Jameis Winston the starter for this week, Chris Olave will jump inside my top 12. Number 16, it's Deebo Samuel, San Francisco 49ers, in that great matchup going up against Seattle. Both Ayuk and Deebo scored over 11 fantasy points in their game against Seattle just a couple weeks ago, so we know they got that safe floor. Deebo's at 16. 17 is Davante Adams in a matchup going up against Minnesota. Love to see Davante Adams going against Justin Jefferson. What I don't love to see is all those single-digit fantasy point games that we've been seeing here as of late for Davante Adams in that Las Vegas Raiders offense, so he's at 17. 18, it's Devontae Smith in that matchup going up against Dallas. With the return of Dallas Goedert, I had to drop Devontae Smith a little bit. Whenever both those guys are on the field together, Devontae Smith's ceiling does come down. I got him at 18. 19, it's DK Metcalf, last week's top wide receiver. Dude was out there balling out. Why does he not do that more consistently? Well, now he's got a pretty difficult matchup going up against San Francisco, who's been playing great here as of late. Now, obviously, matchups matter, but I don't know if I'm to the point where we're ready to sit DK Metcalf either. He's got to be inside the top 24. That's why I got him at 19. Same thing, really, for Nico Collins. Tough matchup going up against the Jets. I expect him to be covered in sauce, but what we saw last week from Nico, really what we've seen majority of the season from Nico Collins, and now we have no Tank Dell, I'm going to roll my studs out here in week 14. Nico deserves to be in the top 20 as well. Got him at number 20. 21 is Puka Nacua, and another difficult matchup going up against Baltimore. Plus, we know Puka not 100%. But Sean McVay even came out yesterday and said, I don't really understand the whole limited tag with Puka. He did everything he was supposed to today. And what's crazy is Puka seems like the better wide receiving option in this offense right now over Cooper Kupp, which is, I did not expect to say that in 2023. How about Rashee Rice at number 22 in a matchup going up against Buffalo? He is the clear top wide receiving option in this offense. It's apparent to everyone at this point, but for the first time all season long, Rashee Rice has had back-to-back games with at least 9 targets. 9 targets weekly in a Patrick Mahomes-led offense, that makes you a top 24 wide receiver, so I got him at number 22. 23, it's Brandon Cooks, Dallas Cowboys going up against Philadelphia. That secondary which can be had through the air, and Brandon Cooks continues to find the end zone. Touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 games. He's at number 23. 24, this is where I have Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams. Difficult matchup going up against Baltimore. But with Puka banged up, if for some reason he can't finish that entire game, there's going to be more targets going the way of Cooper Kupp. That's why I got him at 24. 25, Jaden Reed, Green Bay Packers in a great matchup going up against the Giants. We also know that Christian Watson suffered yet another injury. So similar to like we saw earlier in the season, Jaden Reed going to get a lot more opportunities. He's at 25. 26 is Calvin Ridley. Difficult matchup going up against Cleveland. And as of right now, we still don't know for sure about Trevor Lawrence. Now, when Trevor Lawrence went out of last week's game, CJ Beathard didn't overly look the way of Calvin Ridley. Only 2 times. Deep down the field, 1 time called back due to penalty, and then the other one was for -4 yards. So until we hear more about Trevor Lawrence, Ridley's at 26. 27, it's Drake London in a matchup going up against Tampa Bay. A great matchup because the Tampa Bay defense is hurting for certain right now. Drake London is really matchup dependent, and when you get a good matchup like this, he's worth throwing in the top 30 at number 27. 28, it's DeAndre Hopkins, a difficult matchup going up against Miami. Now sure, Tennessee, they're going to have to be throwing the football, but Jalen Ramsey probably going to be on DeAndre Hopkins, and that's not ideal in a low-scoring offense as is. He's going to be at number 28. 29, it's Garrett Wilson, New York Jets. Now that we know Zach Wilson is back, we can pretty much pencil in 12-plus targets a week, right around 8 receptions and 80 yards, going to get you a safe floor, a solid flex weekly. He's at 29. And then 30 right now is where I have Elijah Moore. Now, if you've noticed, I haven't said Amari Cooper's name. He's another guy dealing with some injuries that we do not know if he's going to be available this week or not. And if he is he limited? Elijah Moore led this team in targets and receiving yards last week with Joe Flacco. Don't forget, those two played together in New York as a Jet as well. Now, in no way is Elijah Moore some must-start guy, but if Amari Cooper does not play, he's a lock for 10-plus targets, and that's why I got him right here at number 30. But like usual, we have a few guys here on the outside looking in, guys who could deserve really a top 25 to 30 ranking. There's just not enough room for them. We have Tyler Lockett on the list here. We know that he has that potential big-time ceiling. We just haven't seen it as frequently here in 2023. Deontay Johnson, not just a difficult matchup going up against New England, but he also has to worry about the quarterback play of Mitchell Trubisky. Amari Cooper, we just talked about him and some injury concerns. Great matchup, though, going up against Jacksonville if he's healthy. How about Odell Beckham going up against his former team, the team in which he won the Super Bowl with in the Los Angeles Rams? Does Lamar give him a few extra opportunities here this week to score a touchdown against his former team? I think he probably does. What about Adam Thielen? They've absolutely tanked the value of Adam Thielen there in Carolina because they started to throw the ball to Jonathan Mingo and basically forgot that Adam Thielen is a thing on their roster. He's got a matchup going up against New Orleans. Would love to have him higher. He should be higher, but Carolina going to Carolina. How about Gabe Davis? I said in my wide receiver start sit video that I smelt a Gabe Davis touchdown here this week. In a matchup going up against Kansas City, you got to expect a lot of offense, so he's here on the list. How about Jackson Smith and Jigba? JSN turning into probably one of the safest options in Seattle. He's not going to have the ceiling of a DK Metcalf, but if you're looking for a safe, reliable floor play in your flex at a wide receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba is about as safe as it possibly gets, just not an overly high ceiling. How about Noah Brown? Don't forget about Noah Brown, right? We know he hasn't been 100% healthy, but he was on the field for over 80% of his snaps last week. And if Nico Collins can be locked down by Sauce Gardner, we could see extra targets going the way of Noah Brown, especially with no Tank Dell anymore there in Houston, so definitely pay attention to Noah Brown. How about Josh Downs? Been a disappointment here now in back-to-back weeks because Alec Pierce starting to take away some of those bigger plays. Now, the volume has been there, and that's why he's still here on the list. Hopefully he can kind of bounce back a little bit. What about T. Higgins? He came back from injury last week, didn't really do a whole lot, but we've also seen that Jake Browning can lead this Cincinnati offense, so don't forget about T. Higgins as a flex play option. And then Zay Flowers here lastly. Over his last 2 games, he's really starting to put together some explosive plays. Now, there may not be something we can count on weekly, but in a matchup here this week going up against the Rams, he's definitely a name to consider as well. But all right, that's going to wrap up my quick and dirty top 30 wide receivers here for week 14 fantasy football. By now, you should have all the information you need to start some wide receivers in your fantasy football team. Remember, the playoffs are right around the corner. Now is not the time to get too cute, especially if this is some must-win game. The last thing you want to do during your fantasy football season is get cute in a game in which you need to win to make it to the playoffs. You end up losing because you benched a stud and they go off. That is a very sour taste in your mouth for the entire offseason. Don't do that. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend as well. And then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.